name's Jocelyn with The Studio. Welcome to our channel. Today we are going to be making felt stuffies in the shape of a flower. So grab your materials and let's get started. You'll need a paper pattern for the flower. This will include 2 sheets. You'll take some felt. We're going to use 2 colors, one for the inside of the flower and another for the petals. You'll need embroidery thread, some scissors. These are fabric scissors, but you'll also want another pair for paper, some pins and an embroidery needle, as well as some polyfill to stuff your project. So the first thing we are going to do is cut out our paper pattern. You're gonna have 2 different sheets, and that's because today we're gonna be layering them. So grab some paper scissors and cut them out. And as you're cutting, if things don't look perfect, don't worry about it. We are going to do our best. And the more you practice cutting, the straighter all of your lines and your curves are going to be. And here's my little flower. Now we're going to cut out our second flower. Once you have cut out your 2 paper patterns, it's time to transfer these to our felt. The first fabric we want to cut out is the fabric that we want for our petals. So in this case, I'm going to use this golden yellow-orange color. So I want to take our pattern piece like this, and we're going to cut 2 pieces. So I have just folded my fabric in half, and I'm going to take the paper pattern and pin it right here, and then we're going to cut around. So once you have cut all the way around, you'll have a piece that kind of looks like a sun, almost like a sunflower. But we are going to set this aside. And now I'm going to take my other pattern piece, the flower with just 5 petals, and we're going to cut this out of our same fabric. For this flower, we only need 1 layer, so I don't need to fold it. It's just 1 layer of felt. And you'll pin it in place. Next, we're going to cut out the circle in the middle of our flower. Cut it out of your paper pattern. Then we're going to line it up with the orange felt. We're going to do just what we did with the other pieces. Pin the pattern in place and make sure when you pin, your pin is all the way on the paper. You don't want to accidentally cut it off with your scissors when you're cutting around the pattern. And now that we've cut all our pieces, let's start to assemble them together. You should have 2 of the big base flowers, 1 of your 5 petal flowers, and last, the circle to go in the middle. First, we're going to set aside the very back piece. We're going to use that later. Now, line everything up because we are going to sew these together to attach them. Now we want to prep our thread. Embroidery thread comes in 6 strands. You want to separate it into 3 and 3 so that it's easier to thread through your needle. You'll separate and pull slowly. You can see that all my strands are not the same length. So I'm going to want to cut them with a pair of scissors to even them out before I thread my needle. And I'm going to pinch the thread and put it into my needle, to the eye of my needle. So it'll look something like this. And you'll want to leave a tail. That's the short piece of the thread that is not going to be tied, that won't be tied in a knot. And the way we make a knot, we're going to make a loop and then pull the rest of the string through the loop. And in order to make this a little tighter, we're just going to do it a few times. And pull. Once you have threaded your needle and tied your knot, it's time to start sewing. The first thing we're going to do is sew around the circle. We always start on the back. As you're sewing your project, you want to make sure to pull all the way up on your thread so that you're not going to have any big loops on the back or the front. So we'll sew and pull. Something else you want to watch for is this tail right here. You'll see that right now it's only about 2 inches away from the project. So if I just pull on my thread, my tail will get smaller. And with a shorter thread, I can continue to sew. And I'm almost done. My circle is almost complete. And when it is, it should look something like this. Now we're going to tie a knot on the back. The way we are gonna tie our knot is gonna be right where the thread's coming up. You'll put your needle into your fabric, but just through the very top layer. And there will be a loop that you can pull your thread through. We're gonna do that a few times for extra security. Create that little loop, put your needle through, and pull. Now that our flower is all put together and everything is attached to the base, we are gonna pick up this piece once more. This is the back, and we are going to match everything up. So you'll see here, I'm just doing my best to match. And you can just turn and rotate it until you do. The next step in constructing our flower is going to do what's called a blanket stitch. It looks like this. So you're gonna have a little stitch that goes in all the way around, but you'll also have a line of thread that kind of borders your project. If you've never done a blanket stitch before, don't worry. I'm gonna post an older video clip in the next few seconds or so that you can learn just how to do it. So you can grab a piece of scrap fabric and practice there. You wanna start by threading your needle. Make sure you have already separated your embroidery floss into 3 strands, not 6. Once you've prepped your needle and you've tied your knot, we're gonna practice on this fabric. Starting a blanket stitch can be the most challenging part, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple. So we're gonna start sewing bottom to top, and then we're gonna do that again, bottom to top, sewing up, and then we're gonna create a loop. You'll thread your needle through that loop and then pull. We're gonna do it again. So up, pull, 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 until we get a little loop. And then we're gonna thread our needle through the loop and pull. So up, pull, through the loop, and pull again. So up, create a loop, and it might get tangled, so just sew slowly. Find your loop, go through it, and pull. Now let's get started on the real project. And when we begin to sew, we are going to start from the back of our project. You can start in any corner. You're gonna start by sewing up, then you're gonna sew up again, and then through the little loop that it leaves. Let me show you up close. If you notice that your thread is getting a little short, go ahead and take off your sewing needle. Grab the other piece of thread. So this one should also have 3 strands. And you can just tie them together. So we're gonna tie it really close to the edge of the fabric. Once you've tied your knot, you can just continue sewing as normal. So we're gonna go up and then back through the loop. Up through all the layers of the fabric and back through the little loop. Up through all the layers of the fabric and find your loop, go through and pull. And just before we finish sewing up our last petal, we're gonna take our polyfill and stuff our flower. You want to stuff it in between the 2 base pieces that we cut out. And when you stuff, you don't want to take a giant piece to try to get it into our project. Instead, we're going to work in little pieces of felt at a time. And that's going to keep it from getting to be lumpy, so it'll be nice and soft. So we'll take a little bit, press it in. You can work it into each corner of the flower. So we'll start, now I'm going to push it into this corner. Get a little bit more felt. And I'll put it into this corner right here. And the reason we are working with small pieces, again, you can just tear off a bunch and have them ready for you, is because then we can evenly fill our flower. So again, to the corner, grab a new piece of fluff, to the next corner. And our flower project is actually one of the easier ones to stuff. You might take on another project, either one you create yourself or one from another one of our project kits. And things with narrow areas, such as the legs of a llama, the legs or the feet of a knight, the legs of a dragon, those can be a little more tough to stuff, and sometimes I'll recommend having a dowel or the back of a pencil to really push all of the stuff in. But luckily, because our flower is kind of one big shape with nothing too narrow, you can kind of just use your fingers to work that polyfill all the way to each of the corners to really stuff it. We're gonna keep going. And it might seem like this is a ton of polyfill, but when it's not inside of a project, it's filled really with a lot of air, with a lot of space. So you'll be surprised how much you actually can fit into your projects. Okay, we're just gonna keep stuffing. And once we are happy with the amount of volume and fluff, the amount of stuffing, then we can close it up. So I'm just gonna put a little bit more in. Awesome. And now I need to put my needle back in, but this thread is short again. So before I start, I'm gonna pull some more thread from my skein, cut it, and I need to separate it again. So 3 and 3 is what I want. Just be patient and then you'll find it. And slowly pull. And this piece is actually a little bigger than what I need for my project, so I will cut it here. And now I can tie these pieces together. Again, just right at the base of my project. Great. And then I will cut off the extra and rethread my needle. So I have my needle right here, and I'm going to pinch the thread and put it into my needle, to the eye of my needle, and just continue that blanket stitch just like I was doing before. So I'm going to pull up and then go through the loop. And it seems like sometimes the stuffing will just be pushing out. In fact, I even want a little bit more stuffing in here. But all you have to do is pinch your project together like this. And you can just continue to sew almost as if it were flat. Don't worry about how big and fluffy the rest is. Just worry about flattening the area of the fabric that you're currently sewing. There we go. Almost done. And the other half of the flower, this petal. And again, once we finish, once we get to the very end, we get to tie a knot. Maybe 2 more stitches right in here. 1, 2. Pull. And I'm gonna tie my knot just like I did before by going right in through the fabric, right where my thread's coming up, and pulling a few times to create a knot through these little loops that form. And now we can cut off our excess thread, and we've created a cute little flower stuffy. If you'd like to learn and follow more tutorials like this one, go to thestudiobakersfield.com.